You know what nobody tells you about getting older? The thing that starts slipping first, it is not your knees. It is not your back, it is your brain. And the terrifying part is most people do not even notice it happening until they walk into a room and forget why they are there, or they cannot remember the name of someone they have known for 20 years. But what if I told you there is one activity that has been shown in study after study to be more effective at protecting your brain than crossword puzzles, more effective than learning a new language, and way more fun than sitting in front of a computer doing memory exercises? I am talking about dancing. And before you click away thinking this is some kind of feel-good fluff piece, let me be clear. The science behind this is absolutely staggering. Researchers at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine conducted a study that followed people for over 2 decades. And they looked at all kinds of leisure activities to see which ones actually reduced the risk of dementia. They examined reading, writing, swimming, cycling, golf, and yes, dancing. Want to know what? They found dancing was the only physical activity out of everything they tested that offered significant protection against dementia. And the numbers were not even close. We are talking about a 76% reduced risk of dementia for people who danced frequently, 76%. That is not a small effect, that is a massive game changer. Now you might be thinking, okay, but exercise in general is good for the brain, right? And you are absolutely correct. Physical activity does wonderful things for your brain. It increases blood flow, it promotes the growth of new neurons, it reduces inflammation. All of that is true. But here is where dancing separates itself from every other form of exercise. When you are on a treadmill or lifting weights, your body is doing the work, but your brain is basically on autopilot. You are repeating the same movements over and over. Your brain does not have to figure anything out. But when you dance, everything changes. Think about what is actually happening in your brain. When you dance, you are listening to music and processing rhythm in real time. You are coordinating your limbs to move in specific patterns. You are navigating space so you do not bump into other people. You are remembering sequences of steps. You are making split-second decisions about what comes next. And if you are dancing with a partner, you are also reading their body language, anticipating their movements, and responding to nonverbal cues. Your brain is firing on all cylinders simultaneously, and that, my friends, is what makes dancing a neurological powerhouse. Let me break this down a bit more, because the neuroscience here is fascinating. When you learn a new dance step, your brain has to form new neural connections. It is literally building new pathways. And the more complex the dance, the more pathways it creates. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it is essentially your brain's ability to rewire itself. As we age, our brains naturally lose some of this plasticity, which is why learning new things gets harder. But here is the beautiful part. Dancing actively fights against that decline. It keeps your brain in a state of constant adaptation and growth. There is another layer to this that most people completely overlook, and it has to do with something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short. Think of BDNF as Miracle-Grow. For your brain cells, it helps existing neurons survive, and it encourages the growth of new neurons, and new synapses. Exercise in general boosts BDNF levels. But research suggests that activities combining physical movement with cognitive demands like dancing produce even greater increases in BDNF than exercise alone. So you are not just maintaining your brain, you are actively building it up. Now I want to talk about something that hit me really hard. When I was researching this topic, there was a study done in Germany where researchers took a group of seniors with an average age of 68 and split them into two groups. One group did traditional fitness exercises, repetitive movements, stretching, endurance training. The other group took dance classes where they were constantly learning new choreography, new styles, new routines. After 18 months, they scanned everyone's brains, and both groups showed an increase in the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain most associated with memory and learning. But only the dance group showed improvements in balance, and that matters because balance is controlled by parts of the brain that are closely linked to cognitive function. So dance was doing something that regular exercise simply could not. And we need to talk about the hippocampus for a moment, because this is where things get really personal. The hippocampus is one of the first regions to shrink as we age, and it is one of the first regions affected by Alzheimer's disease. When your hippocampus deteriorates, you start losing your memories. First, the recent ones, then gradually the older ones, the things that make you who you are. Your wedding day, the birth of your children, the sound of your mother, is voice. Those memories live in your hippocampus, and dancing has been shown to not just slow the shrinkage of this critical brain region, but to actually increase its volume. That is not just science, that is hope. Let me give you another angle on this that I think is incredibly important, the social component of dance. When you dance with other people, you are engaging in one of the most complex social activities humans can do. You are communicating through movement. You are building trust. You are sharing an emotional experience, and we know from decades of research that social isolation is one of the biggest risk factors for cognitive decline. Loneliness literally shrinks your brain, it increases inflammation, it raises cortisol levels, and it accelerates the progression of dementia. Dancing fights all of that because it brings people together in a way that is joyful and connected and deeply human. There is also the music factor. And this one blows my mind. Music activates more areas of the brain simultaneously than any other stimulus we know of. It lights up the motor cortex, the auditory cortex, the emotional centers, the memory centers. When you combine music with movement, you create this incredible symphony of brain activation that is basically a full brain workout. And here is something amazing. Even people with advanced Alzheimer who cannot recognize their own family members can often still respond to music. They can still tap their feet. They can still sway to a rhythm. The musical memory pathways seem to be some of the last ones to go, which tells us something profound about how deeply music and movement are wired into our brains. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, this all sounds great, but I have 2 left feet. I cannot dance. I would be embarrassed. And I want to address that head on because it is probably the biggest barrier keeping people from experiencing these incredible benefits. Here is what the research actually shows. It is not about being good at dancing. The benefits come from the learning process itself, from the challenge of trying something new and making mistakes. And trying again. In fact, the more challenging you find it, the better it might be for your brain because your brain has to work harder to form those new connections. You do not need to be performing on a stage. You do not need to look graceful. You just need to move your body to music and keep challenging yourself with new patterns and new steps. You can start in your living room with a YouTube tutorial. You can take a beginner class at your local community center. You can go to a social dance where everyone is just there to have fun. The point is to start somewhere, anywhere. Let me share something that really puts this in perspective. The World Health Organization released a massive report analyzing over 900 publications on the relationship between arts and health. And they found that dance had measurable benefits for everything from depression and anxiety to Parkinson's disease to chronic pain to cardiovascular health. But the cognitive benefits were among the most consistent and most significant findings across the entire body of research. We are not talking about one study or 2 studies. We are talking about a mountain of evidence all pointing in the same direction. And for those of you who are younger watching this and thinking, well, dementia is not something I need to worry about. Yet let me challenge that assumption because the seeds of cognitive decline are planted decades before symptoms appear. The choices you make in your 20s, 30s, and 40s directly impact your brain health in your 70s and 80s. Starting a dance practice now is like putting deposits into a cognitive savings account that you will draw from later in life, and the earlier you start, the bigger that account grows. I also want to highlight something fascinating about different styles of dance and their effects on the brain. Research suggests that dances requiring improvisation like freestyle or social dances may offer even greater cognitive benefits than choreographed routines because improvisation demands real-time creative problem solving. Your brain cannot fall back on memorized patterns. It has to constantly generate new solutions. That said, learning choreography has its own benefits, particularly for memory and sequential processing. So the ideal approach might be to mix it up, do some structured learning, and some freestyle. Let your brain get challenged in different ways. There is one more piece of this puzzle that I think deserves attention, and it is the emotional dimension of dance. When you dance, your brain releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. These are not just making you feel happy in the moment, they are actually protecting your brain. Chronic stress and depression are major risk factors for cognitive decline. They literally damage brain cells and accelerate aging in the brain. Dancing combats this by reducing cortisol levels and flooding your system with protective neurochemicals. It is medicine that does not come in a pill bottle. It comes through joy and movement and connection. So let me bring this all together because I think the big picture here is really powerful. We live in a world where dementia affects tens of millions of people, and that number is projected to triple in the coming decades. We spend billions on pharmaceutical research looking for a cure, and while that work is important, we already have something that works right now, something that has been shown to reduce the risk of dementia by 76%, something that grows the hippocampus, something that boosts BDNF, something that reduces social isolation, something that activates more of the brain than almost any other activity, something that releases protective neurochemicals and something that makes you feel alive and connected and joyful. And it has been right under our noses this entire time. Dancing is not just entertainment, it is not just exercise, it is not just art. It is one of the most powerful brain protecting activities available to human beings. And the best part is it does not require a prescription, it does not require expensive equipment, it does not require a gym membership, it just requires you to put on some music and move. Now here is my challenge to you, and I am being completely serious about this. I want you to dance today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Put on your favorite song and move for just 3 minutes. That is it, 3 minutes. Do not worry about how you look. Do not worry about whether you are doing it right. Just let your body respond to the music. And while you are doing it, know that inside your skull, something remarkable is happening. New neural pathways are forming. Your hippocampus is getting a workout, BDNF is flooding, your brain stress hormones are dropping, and you are literally building a stronger, more resilient brain one step at a time. If this video opened your eyes to something you did not know before, share it with someone you love, especially someone who might be worried about their cognitive health as they get older. This information could genuinely change the trajectory of someone's life. And that is not an exaggeration. The difference between a 76% reduced risk and doing nothing is the difference between remembering your grandchildren's names and not. I am going to leave you with this thought for most of human history. Dance was not a hobby. It was not a performance. It was a central part of how communities bonded, how stories were passed down, how people healed and celebrated and grieved somewhere along the way. We forgot that we turned dance into something only for professionals or for special occasions, but our brains never forgot. Our brains are still wired to dance. They are still waiting for us to move, to connect, to create. And every time we do, we are not just dancing, we are fighting for our future selves. We are protecting the memories that make us who we are. And we are proving that sometimes the most powerful medicine is also the most joyful. If this changed how you think, do me a favor and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more content that helps you, subscribe and turn on notifications because I have a lot more of these coming. I will see you in the next one. Yeah, and in the comments, tell me when was the last time you danced? Not at a wedding, not at a party, but truly danced. Alone in your living room, just for the joy of moving. I want to hear your stories. I will see you in the next one. So go, dance, your brain will thank you.